Ajay Rana. Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Rashmi Atawar, Joint Managing Director, Indo-American Hybrid Seeds. Ms. Rashmi. Ms. Rashmi. Dr. Yakoba is already there on the stage. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Dilip Kumar Guntuku, founder and CEO of Taraba Seeds Limited. Thank you very much, Mr. Dr. Dilip Kumar Guntuku. Ms. Rashmi Atawar, Joint Managing Director, Indo-American Hybrid Seeds. Or if anybody knows her, please give her a call. Thank you so much, sir. Miss Rashmi. Okay, she's here. She's here. Ms. Rashmi, Joint Managing Director, Indo-American Hybrid Seeds. Thank you very much, ma'am. So, ladies and gentlemen, can we start with session 1? Can we give a huge round of applause to the esteemed panelists, everybody? Over to the moderator, Mr. Vivek Mathur, Executive Director, ICFA. So, ladies and gentlemen, the topic for the first session is Driving Seed Sector Growth, India-Africa Collaboration Opportunities. Over to you, the moderator, sir. Check. Check.
Hello. Hello. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So, good morning, everybody, and welcome back after the tea. So, it is my pleasure and privilege to be moderating this first session, wherein we have a very eminent panel of experts in their own fields, and we will eagerly await to hear their views and on various issues that is facing the seed sector, both on the plus and the minus sides. As we all know, both India and Africa are increasingly getting dependent on seed trade. And I was reading somewhere, as per APEDA figures, that the total seed exports from India, total, is in the range of US dollar 121 million. But it is primarily going to Europe, US, and the Middle East. Africa still comprises of a very low percentage. But the good part is there is a big demand. And we are naturally aligned to each other. Both of us have agri economies. Both of us have a growing young population. Logistically also, we are comparatively near as compared to Brazil or China or US. Climate-wise also, I think we understand each other. So the need for climate resistance seed is there. So that way, I think there is a lot of future in the trade industry. But surely, if the trade is not picking up, there are some bottlenecks. They probably relate to the compliances part, the quality aspects, maybe the payment and the credit terms. So these are some issues which I think we will need to discuss here today, and trying to see what solutions we can find with the main aim of increasing the seed trade from India, and what all can this panel suggest is now will be open to all. and the total time is about 1 hour. So we will have to, do it accordingly. I think about 5 to 6 minutes to each speaker. Uh, so I'll start, the session with Mr. Ajay Rena. And of course, he has his views, but I would primarily like to ask him what does he feel are the biggest opportunities for growth in the next decade? And how do you visualize collaborations helping the seed industry between India and Africa? Sir, please.
Yeah, this is, I believe, still morning. We have 3 minutes to go to afternoon. I request the organizer if we can close the door so it can be quieter here. So thank you, ICFA, for organizing this important event. Before jumping into the opportunities we heard this morning, in fact, from the keynote speakers, and I would avoid repeating the same points, but let me start by, visiting history. History tells us a lot. Africa and India, we share a lot. We are natural partners. So we, the Homo sapiens, our original place is Africa. So in fact, like the humans, we originated in Africa and moved all over the world. And maybe one of the earliest migration from Africa, my theory is, was to India. So we share a lot of common beliefs. In fact, like a speaker in the morning said, Vasudev Kutumbakam. I know that in Africa also, like, hey, we respect nature, we respect human being, we respect human values. What has happened over the years, like the new world has focused on taking care of themselves. In fact, now the slogans like "Make America Great Again," we in Africa and India, we focused more on, in fact, like it was an old civilization. We were evolved a lot. We had enough food. So the rest of the world, Europeans, the Middle East, they invaded India and Africa for food. In fact, till Second World War, the war used to be for food and maybe fiber. India used to produce a lot of, textile also. So nowadays, the wars are not about food. Since, the world has achieved self-sufficiency in food production, now the wars are about other resources, energy, and in future, maybe about microchips, semiconductors. Africa can learn a lot from India's mistakes, as well as achievements. So, seed played a very important role for India to achieve self-sufficiency in food production. I think one very important thing for a country or a continent is to produce enough food to feed your own people. And seed played a very important role in that. The Green Revolution in India was triggered by seeds. And in fact, like many of those seeds, they were not from India origin. So they were like, global institutions like CIMMYT, etc., helped in getting those dwarf varieties of wheat. India worked very closely with IRRI, Indian scientists. We developed, the new rice varieties, and we achieved self-sufficiency. So seed would play a very important role for Africa to achieve self-sufficiency in food production. I've been a seedsman for last 30 years, have built new crops, business, new companies, worked in 3 continents, and unfortunately so far I have not worked in Africa. I was telling someone this morning that, this continent is where I have not worked. I worked in Americas, Asia, Australia. So the opportunity for India and Africa, in fact, like, hey, learn, India can help a lot in capacity building. So I think Africa's model has been so far a lot around philanthropy. And I'm a strong believer, like, hey, you have to be on your own feet. Philanthropy can take you only there. If as a civilization, as a country, as a society, you have to have sustainable food production, sustainable resources, even a family, you have to be on your own feet. India, like many of us sitting in the hall today here, as well as the private businesses, our bureaucrats, many of us have roots in agriculture. And we learn like hard lessons like, hey, agriculture alone will not make the country prosperous or developed. But yeah, you produce enough to feed yourself. So our professional and our, I'll say like technocrats from India, we can help in building capacity in Africa, right from breeding programs, seed production, infrastructure. But one area where I believe ICFA, FSII, I am also the chairperson of FSII, NSAI, we can work together with the African governments, African businesses, is about answering 3 Ws. So I'm a businessman, so it all starts with what. What do we want to do? What collaboration? Which crop? Second is where? Which country, which region? And the third is how we do that. So if we can develop a digital directory of Africa, digital directory for agriculture, which map all the agroclimatic zones, soil types, irrigation sources, then it would be a very easy task for seed businesses, professionals from India and around the world to figure out like where do we go, how we get the approvals. So developing, in fact, the policy environment, developing regulations, that is another important area. Starting with human resources, then regulations, then infrastructure. And in the near term, of course, India can export, the African businesses can import from India. We are in fact, like we have a very vibrant seed industry in India. But I tell you, 10, 15 years down the line, Africa has to produce their own. And I can tell you in 15, 20 years, in India, we will have a challenge of producing our own seed. This is what is happening in developed countries today, even in China. So maybe 2 decades down the line, we can start importing from Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hello. Yeah, thank you, sir. I think it was a very informative speech that Mr. Rana gave, and he basically highlighted the importance of India and Africa as natural partners and what all prospects that we have vis-a-vis compared to other countries, and the need for collaborations and joint ventures and investments. Thank you, sir. Coming to Madam Rashmi Tawar. Hello, ma'am. You are also an expert in the field, so if you could probably elaborate that as per you, what are the challenges which the seed industry is currently facing, and what should be the strategy of business leaders and institutions to actually, benefit the farmers and, mitigate the challenges?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, ICFI, for this opportunity to speak on a very, it's a very vast subject, considering such a large continent, Africa and India. One of the primary challenges we face is a growing population and engagement of youth in agriculture. I think that's going to be a challenge for both countries because there's lesser youth engaged now in agriculture, and how we attract that talent to be engaged in agriculture and horticulture. The other large, what we call, the whole world is facing today is climate change. rapid changes in pest and disease complexes, but not enough time to even breed them with the change in temperatures. Growing temperatures have been a challenge for both Africa and India, and we can't seem to get varieties quick enough to deal with all the changes. We've seen the growth of common pests which we ignored to now have economic importance. Diseases like twister in onion. Which also brings us to the challenges is when we get innovative hybrids, do we have a harmonized seed policy in both the African continent as well as in India to move material with the least amount of resistance? Having a harmonized policy is something which has been a challenge, but I'm sure all of us are working towards it with various forums. I quote some figures from AFTA where we see growth coming up to 4 billion in seed, but how do we get to this? So it remains a challenge, which I'm sure with this large forum, with the seed industry here, we're able to face this challenge and move ahead. With PVP, our innovation is protected. And I see Dr. Dadlani here in the front row, and he's doing a lot of work to ameliorate many of the issues that we face so that we're able to move our innovations to the farmers, to increase their income, to increase trade in farming. And this being said, trust is nurtured. There's more trust among the farmers and the seed companies. Looking at how industry can collaborate, I think learning and development is an area where the Indian industry and the public institutions have done a brilliant work over the last 4-5 decades in learning and development. I see a great opportunity in seed testing, in education to farmers, hand-holding the farmers to grow better crops. Also it's of special interest to me to see what's been done in the African Vegetable Consortium, where there seems to be a lot of work being done which is synergistic to the crops both in India as well as in Africa. Collaboration between the public sector as well as the companies here, and looking at the new varieties coming in, both which are very attractive as varieties as well as crops of great nutritional importance like mung bean and amaranthus, especially grain amaranthus being a high source of protein. These are the opportunities we see where both Africa as well as India can collaborate in terms of research. I also feel that as we go ahead, India has a great future in digital transformation, as we see many platforms within India for forward integration for fresh produce, as well as Africa being a hub for export of vegetables. We've been seeing great movement of that, especially from Kenya, Tanzania. And I think this is a great forward integration where India can help both with the digital platforms that we have. All this goes ahead to technology transfers in different ways. And we see now AI coming up very strongly in helping the farmer, be it in climate forecasting or helping him otherwise to get to the market. So it's a last mile effort. Also to reach the farmer with the best seed. You're getting access to the best seed even in the deepest parts of India through various platforms, and farmers are benefiting. we're seeing digital platforms come in for education of farmers from many of the seed leaders who I see in the audience here. Great work being done by various seed companies educating the farmers. And I think this can go a long way in bridging what I see education, which was what India has done over the last few decades in educating the farmers in getting a better farming system and an integrated farm management system. And education and awareness is what has made the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for highlighting the requirement of collaborations, research, digitalization, and also the PSUs and the private sectors with the basic aim of highlighting the importance of farmers for their upliftment. I now come to Her Excellency Lalitiana Akouche. Hello, ma'am. You are a very senior person in the African industry overall also, and also as the ambassador. If I can ask you, ma'am, how can we shape a sustainable and resilient value chain between India and Africa so that trade can be increased not only on short term but also on a long term basis? And your views on building a strong ecosystem and any changes that you feel should be done as of now to build this ecosystem?
Thank you, Mr. Mathur. First of all, thank you for putting me among the experts on this panel. I think I'm the only one not expert in this topic. But I would like to focus when we're talking about more issues related to small island states like Seychelles. Even we are from part of Africa, we are our own characteristics. And as we know, we are very vulnerable. And we import almost everything. Like in case of Seychelles, we are small, but as we rely on tourism, we receive 4 times of the number of population, the number of tourists. So we have a big number to feed. But whenever there is a problem, there is some trouble, we do feel it more than others because we import in small volume and the prices going up, and it affects not only our tourism sector but as well as the population at large. So I would like to focus on what can be done between Africa, India, especially for small island states. Bear in mind, for example, Seychelles, we are very cautious about the environment and we have very limited areas. So despite that we want to develop the agriculture, we always thinking about the future generation, the future. But yesterday, when I came, I visited a center here in Hyderabad about agriculture. And I was very, very impressed because the size of the center, I would say like a district in Seychelles. And the center is autosufficient. And I was thinking, why not implementing the same in Seychelles? And when you say implementation, we talk about all the points my predecessors have said about helping the farmers, training of the experts, transfer of knowledge, using of the technology. And the Seychelles is small, it's not that difficult. It's not difficult to help us and the other islands about that. So I would say that with India and Africa, they have a big role to help us as a part of Africa, the small island states, where we are very, very vulnerable, to help us in these areas that have already raised, and to ensure that we develop as well in a sustainable manner. For example, Seychelles, despite that we are small, we preserve 30% of our economic zone to be not to touch. And we achieved it in a few years because we targeted it in 2030, but we completed to conserve it in 2020. It means 10 years before. But preserving all this, it means we have less space, less area for us to produce. So I would emphasize that for us, for Africa as well, the collaboration, the South-South cooperation, the transfer of knowledge, training of our farmers, and especially for the experts to go to Seychelles so we can have more farmers because with a limited number of farmers, we cannot send many to other places, but when experts go to Seychelles, they can have many farmers to be trained in different areas. So I would say that for us and Africa and India, and in the same context as well for the global we're talking about, we should implement all the points that has been raised. So I hope that with this summit, I would have more connection and more partnership to build with those present and to see what we can do with Seychelles, Africa and India. India, I've already identified one yesterday. So I hope to have more conversation with all partners, all participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is heartening to note that although Seychelles is a comparatively smaller country, but still they import. So India has a huge potential to export to Seychelles also. I think there's a Seychelles trading company which is centralized to import. Thank you so much. Coming to Mr. Amos Rutherford, as you know. Hello, sir. Okay, we just would like to have your views on the seed sector, which is evolving and growing. So what do you feel would be the trends that would define this sector in the short and the long term? What should we emphasize on to actually see that the seed sector increases?
Okay, so thank you. Listening to the presentations from the morning, it's obvious that the seed sector is actually evolving, and is evolving very fast, moving with the top speed. To able to sustain these summits between India and Africa, one of the things we need to be looking at is actually looking at the technology that's come to the smallholder farmers in Africa. In this case, I'm talking of the climate resilient varieties. That is going to be a trend that's going to continue because, as you all know, we are facing the issue of climate change, and that is going to be a part of the decision for the smallholder farmers to make. So that trend is going to continue. There is going to also be a trend of precision agriculture, digitalization, where unlike the past where the farmers have to travel so many miles to get access to good quality seeds, we have to be the thing of the past. Because if you look at many rural communities in Africa, it's not about availability of the seeds. Actually has to do with accessibility. Because the seed may be good in one part of the jurisdiction, but the farmer have to travel so many miles just to go and buy a kilo or two of that particular seed. So when you look at the cost of traveling to where the seed is to a smallholder farmer, it actually serves as a incentive to them, so they don't really go to do whatever they are supposed to do. So in case of that, then they rely on the farmer safe seed that actually also lead to poor harvest that we get at the end of the day. One of the trends that also comes is the adoption of biotechnology in our agricultural practices. It's actually the case like when you go to many African communities, it's like biotechnology is nowhere adopted. But where I sit as a breeder by training and a business person, I'm not sure that is the question. But the issue is that those technologies are not accessible to the smallholder farmer. Once it's available, the farmer will not reject it, from my experience with dealing with the farmer. So those trends are going to continue, maybe looking at the market linkage and the consolidation of market. For instance, a lot of smallholder farmers worry that when they have access to good quality seeds and they have a bumper harvest, then the market is not accessible to them. That also sets as a blockade coming to you next time to have a good input for that. So those trends will continue changing, that we need to look at and be able to form a partnership around them.
Thank you, sir. What I understand is that what you are actually looking for is, markets and the quality of seeds and probably the climate-resistant seeds, which I think are already there. The genetically modified seeds, the hybrid seeds. I think that is what we need now, and for which probably a lot of work is being done and will be done. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we come to Mr. Mr. Dilip Kumar Guntugu. Sir, welcome. You have been again in the forefront in this industry, so you can give your general views. And what I would like to probably ask you is, what do you feel is the importance of regional cooperation in this sector, and how do you feel that collaborations and cooperations and joint ventures can help in increasing this sector?
Thank you. May I use few slides? Maybe I told them. Can you put the presentation? Thank you, Chairman. So, thank you, organizers, and also thank you, my good friend, Mr. Prasad, and well-wisher, and who insisted me to come and participate in this event, as well as Mr. M.J. Khan. So you see here, I'm going to talk about our journey in Africa before I answer the question posted by Chairman of this session. Okay. So now this is a new designation and a new company. You see here Taraba Seeds Limited. This we have started on the request of the Taraba state government, so in Nigeria, where it's very difficult to handle some of these seed-related issues. So quickly, this is a collaborative initiative between the Prasad Seeds and the Agtech Innovation Labs. So we started this one to help that part of the world, especially to help them to produce quality seed, as well as make some processing infrastructure available and support them build some capacities. So before going into the details, so one of the speakers highlighted the importance of the food security and also the yield gaps. At the same time, even in the opening remarks, Chairman has indicated the export business from the Indian seed companies, mostly it's several $1 million worth, but it's only limited to US and Middle East and some European countries, very limited to Africa. The reason because it has many challenges, and they are not used to the hybrid seed yet. And even in certain states and the countries, they don't distinguish between the hybrid and the varietal seed. Even at a farmer level, they don't even understand the difference between the grain and the seed. Those are the situations. When we have that kind of conditions, how can we expect get a good price for our seed? And not only producing here, as well as we need to add up the transportation cost. The price increases, we don't see any business there. That's the main reason in many cases and many companies, they started their efforts, but they did not succeed. The only reason what we need to look at, we cannot deny on the importance of the seed. If we have the good seed and best practices, we can contribute to increasing the production 15 to 20%, which is required. Because we've been talking about the growing population, and we have more than 9.5 billion people by 2050. We need more food on the same land, because the land is fixed, population is growing, which is variable. We need to produce more field in the same piece of land. If you can look at the numbers, probably by 2050, we need to produce 2.5 times more than we have. We often hear in many conferences, Africa is going to be a future breadbasket. So we cannot ignore African continent. and we cannot deny making any efforts. The best example between India and Africa, they share the same agroclimatic conditions and the same problems, but not now. 30 years ago, India used to be in the same situation. The problems are same, but we evolved, we learned from our problems, and we evolved new models. Now it's an opportunity how best we can share these experiences to the African part of the world by combining a good quality seed, good quality inputs, and the best farm practices. What we have, we need to take that to that part of the world, but not as it is. We need to see how we can customize, tailor them to suit to the best of their situations and the conditions. So if you can see the example, it's an average. I'm not talking about the minimum and maximum. If you can see in US, taking a case of the maize, the average yield is 10.3 tons per hectare. So whereas in India, it's 3 tons per hectare. Don't say we produce 7 tons, 10 tons, 12 tons. It's on an average, I'm saying, it's not only the research trials or the demonstration trials, it's also considering the farmer fields. If you can look at the African part of the world, it's a 1.5 ton per hectare. So you see, the main reason is the quality seed, as well as not having the good farm practices. So if you can see, there are 54 countries, and we are used to export the seed to the African part of the world to see a business, and not understanding the import and export protocols. So at the same time, there are some regulatory mechanisms brought by the governments, and also the planting time and the delays, we need to adjust the season. Here, we produce mostly in the Rabi season, and when we get the harvesting time, that might be April or May, and we export to the African part of the world, the seed reaches there by end of May or June, by the time planting is done. And when they wanted to store the seed for the next season, they don't have good infrastructure facilities, no cold storage facilities. I'm not talking even the big countries or the small countries. Except South Africa, more or less almost all the African countries share the same story. So I'm going to give you a case of Nigeria here and our experiences. If you see the Nigeria seed market estimated to be $777.4 billion worth, because that needs to feed more than 200 million people. But most of the seed is varietal, not the hybrid seed. So it's the gap we can see, the requirement is 350,000 metric tons. That's the current production, less than quarter of the national demand, because they can't produce more than that. And other than that one, most of these varieties are the open varieties, not the hybrids. So how we can help those countries, because that's the third, I think fourth biggest populous country after India, China, and US, Nigeria stands the fourth in terms of the population. And the country is blessed with many youth, and we need to help that country. That's why we experimented in various African countries, East Africa and West African countries, but we brought our experiences to the Nigerian part of the world, and we set some guidelines to improve the production practices. So same, whatever we have done in India, we brought the same experiences. We set some guidelines. We only produce the seed in the irrigated lands, and as well as we identify the best practices and also develop capacities during that process for the future. So these are some of the satellite images, use how we can use the technologies, and the ground truthing once we identify whatever we visualize that is right or wrong. And then maybe we do an analysis based on the data, what we collected. Then we freeze the production sites, and we establish the trackers and continue to monitor wherever we may be. So once we have done all the good practices, have good people on ground, so then maybe we can see some successful results. So many big companies, they actually given up and left the African part of the world. I'm saying so-called very big companies. So they're no more in the many African countries. and you know whom I'm talking and about which are those companies. Many of you are aware of that one. But we were successful in producing Nigeria. That's because of our own practices are not our experiences. At the same time, we received the good support locally, and as well as the government created that enabling environment for us to succeed. So these are some of the lessons what we learned, and mostly the lack of hybrid seed production experience, where we need to build the capacities in terms of the infrastructure and the human resources. And other than that, when security is a big challenge, and because of the support, and those governments need to create that enabling environment. No processing infrastructure facilities in those countries. So, but where the leadership is good, if you can see, maybe let me take again the case of maize. In Rwanda, the requirement is only 7,000 to 8,000 tons of the maize seeds, but they have 4 processing facilities because the leadership has good connections and he was able to brought good donor agencies. But in Nigeria, they don't even have the good processing facilities, very absolute condition, and one small-scale facility. Even my friend is from Ghana. He set up a processing facility. I was able to visit that one, but the government processing facilities were in absolute condition. They established in 1970. So those were the situations. So we need to establish and support those countries. There is a big business opportunity, as I have shown in Nigerian situation. So, but how we can learn and bring these best of these proven successful models and innovation, pilot to that country, and help them. So is it easy? And some of these experiences from Zambia, Ghana, and all these, what we started, but this not happened very easily, and it may not happen just like that. I decided to work in Africa. I go and worked on that one. It's not easy. Chairman, we attended, now coming to you, answering your question, we attended the summit, the AFSTA, African Seed Trade Association, in Mombasa, which happened a couple of years ago. And that's where we decided, of course, we worked bits and pieces. That's where we decided to start our journey in Africa. And we ventured out. When Mr. Prasad and I, we first traveled to South Africa. For us, most of these countries are the warm places. We went there without having the sweaters or the jackets. It was very freezing. So many of us, the Africa is like the very warm and the deserted conditions. So we need to open the doors. Some of these platforms open the doors and show them what kind of countries are those and what kind of challenges are those, and as well as what kind of opportunities are emerging. These are extremely important. And what kind of protocols for both import and export and the harmonization procedures. Not only that one, it's extremely important to organize some farmer-to-farmer exchange visits. Earlier, USAID was supporting. Now, USAID no longer exists. So maybe some of these forums need to see how best they can organize that one. Most importantly, the capacity building activities. It's not only for the farmers, and also for the seed companies and the students, and also the policymakers at various levels. Some of these forums has the potential to contribute and also establish collaborations and the partnership opportunities. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir, for a very descriptive description on the India-Africa seed trade, which is based on your actual experiences. Now we come to a very important person in the seed trade industry, Dr. Yacouba Diallo. He's the Secretary General of the African Seed Trade Association, and I think he knows the seed industry the best, I think, at like the back of his hand. So if he can give his views on the industry in general, and then we'll end it up. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Africa is diverse. Sometimes when we talk about Africa outside, we are thinking it's a one country, but Africa is a continent, and the seed industry also in the continent is diverse. From South Africa to West Africa, he has
show us in the presentations so many different, but we have harmonizations ongoing. We have industry growing in the continent, and the continent has huge opportunities, huge potential. We talk about it this morning, and for us, one of the key important takeaway from these discussions is to keep the flame of this initiative still burning. It started by a summit. We have made an achievement this morning by launching a forum, India-Africa Seed Forum. For me, this is the key achievement. It is the powerful instrument we can use to develop the seed industry and strengthen the collaboration between the two continents. Through this platform, we can sustain what we have already started, engage more stakeholders, starting by the industry players, the policymakers, the farmers, the civil society. We need to engage all of them to make sure that the seed systems in our two regions grow. We should leverage on these platforms also to build alliance. And for me, the seed industry globally need this kind of alliance. And we have to make sure that we can build on some values, some core values within these alliances by starting what I usually call the 4 Cs, by connecting us, connecting all the attacks around the seed system, by also collaborating. Connection, collaboration between the seed actors in India and in Africa, but also communicating. We should communicate. We should share knowledge. We should share the regulation. We should share our perspective. We should share the market information between us to make sure that the informations and the industry also can be developed. We can build a system with evidence, with science-based information. And we should also use that platform to coordinate our efforts. Because without coordinations, we will lose resources, we will lose our energies, and we will not be able to create more synergies. So again, I'm not going to explain how the seed industry is in the continent. We have talked about it since the morning. It's growing. There are so many opportunities. Technologies are there. The yields are low, but we can work together to develop the seed systems in the continent by collaboration, by communicating, by coordinations, and by connecting. Thank you.
Indeed, sir. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Such a fantastic session one. So, thank you to our panelists for throwing some light on the driving seed sector growth, India-Africa collaboration opportunities. So now it's time for me to invite on stage Mr. Arish Hussain to give the memento to our esteemed panelists. Yes. So ladies and gentlemen, can we please clap for Mr. Amos Rutherford? Mr. Ajay Rana, Chairman, FSII. Ms. Rashmi Atawar, Joint Managing Director, Indo-American Hybrid Seeds. Ms. Rashmi, ma'am. Dr. Yacoba Diallo, our General Secretary, African Seed Trade Association, AFSTA. Dr. Dilip Kumar Guntuku, founder and CEO of Taraba Seeds Limited. Dr. Amos Rutherford, founder, Legacy Crop Improvement Center. A huge round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. Check. I request our panelists to please join for a group picture. Let's together have a group picture. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much.